Hi, it's Jim, just searching and contemplating scripture. I know that most of the subject matter I deal with doesn't have broad appeal, that there are very few people interested in it, but there are some. I'm finding that there are some that are both familiar with the kinds of things that I'm talking about, have been spending their time in scripture, etc., and then it becomes apparent when they're sharing their comments and doing other things. And if you're of that ilk, I invite you to share a comment, because if I can find more community to people who are serious about the scriptures, I'm looking for it. Part of what I do is knowing that today we live in a world that isn't really too, things are okay in the United States. Some people are suffering here and there, but generally speaking, a broad distress is not taking place in America. And I think most of us are awaiting the end times where we do anticipate there being stress coming upon America and the world. Probably there's going to be economic distress. There could be, we expect an antichrist to rise up on the scene and create distress. So while I don't really think there's much of an audience today, not a broad audience anyway, because most people are occupied with the cares of this world and other things, just other things. But when those times come and when the hard times hit, then I think people may begin to turn a little more. And I guess that's part of the reason for my channel. Isn't because I'm trying to create broad appeal amongst the masses or just get up a large channel or anything like that in anything that I'm doing. I'm just trying to create a repository of things for people to turn to when it's time. And the other thing that I'm doing is for those who might stumble on my channel, I want to, because I get that some videos catch traction for, because of the labels probably and other things, topics that people are more broadly interested in, like the rapture and the Dead Sea Scrolls and some things. If I put a video out like that, then I'll get more views and just more traction. But the other thing that I'm doing is, and trying to do, is encourage people, because for everybody that does stumble upon the channel and the messaging that I've got, which I don't claim to be 100% right, but I'm studying 100% right. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I'm working on it. And for all those who are earnestly engaging in it, I'm ready to discuss. I do not have to hold to any position I'm taking. But what I am trying to do is for him who might be getting pricked in his heart, in his spirit, by the Father, by Yahuwah, I'm trying to give some guidance. If you, maybe in case that's you and you're stumbling upon my channel. Well, one of the themes that you'll see in my videos, one of them is that if you really want him, he doesn't broadly make himself easy to attain. If you want him, you have to pursue him. You can't get it by just a casual read in scripture. You can't understand what he's asking for or what he's doing or what his doctrines are with just some casual forays into scripture. It just can't be done. And we're all familiar with, and I'm going to pull it up here, we're all familiar with, I shouldn't say we all, but many in the church, those who study and spend time in the church should be and probably are familiar with Hebrews 11:6. They may not recognize it as Hebrews 11:6, but you'll probably recognize this passage. If you're, and I've just pulled it up in Bible Hub so I can show you how it reads in many of the various versions out there, because it does vary. But here in the New International Version, which was the popular version in my day when I first started getting into Christianity, I'm not sure it's still the most popular version, but it's out there. And it reads like this: "And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." In the New Living Translation, which is it's a popular translation today, it reads like this: "And it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him." the English Standard Version, an old tried and true. And without faith it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. The Berean Standard, and I think that's one of the newer, I believe, translations. It's one that I had turned to in recent years. I have a copy of it. And without faith, it is impossible to please God. For anyone who approaches him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. The Berean Literal Bible. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For it is necessary for the one coming to God to believe that he is and that he becomes a rewarder of those seeking him out. The King James, which is intended, it's the old tried and true. It's intended to be a literal translation. And that's why you're seeing, in these paraphrased editions that we've been reading, they don't insert these italicized words because they're not trying to be literal. They are paraphrasing. But in the literal translations, when they insert words, they're supposed to be putting in these things in parentheses. So it was apparently inserted in the Berean literal, as is him. And so let's go down to the King James and we're getting the same thing. But without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. So many of us know this word, diligently seek him. Probably because of the influence that we've had in the King James, and then also the New King James that was also popular in my day. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Okay, so that's enough, but let me just see if I can go through. It appears that maybe the word diligently, let me go check this in Greek in just a second to see if there's a word that suggests that diligently versus seek him is appropriate. But here we have some other, those who seek him, those who seek him, those who seek him, those who earnestly, this is the Amplified, earnestly and diligently seek him. Don't know why they're doing that. The Berean Annotated, earnestly seek him. Christian Bible, those who seek him. Okay, so you get the idea. If you want to, here's the ERV, the English Revised Version, and I'll just stay there for a second. But you know that if you want to please him, if you want to be well-pleasing, then you have to believe that he is, believe that Elohim is, and that he's rewarder of them that seek after him. So if you are, the theme of this is that if you seek him, you find him because he rewards you. If you believe he is and you seek him, you will find him. But conversely, that suggests that if you're not going to bother to seek after him, and if the word diligently is correct and earnestly is correct, then you have to work at it. But he rewards you. And that's what I'm finding. I think that's in the circles that I choose to run in, we're all being rewarded by that. Let me run off to the Greek real quick in this. Okay, so here it is in the Greek, Hebrews 11:6, and I won't spend a lot of time on it, but I guess I'll just kind of read the English side of it, and then when we get to where we need to go, we'll look over at the Greek. Without now faith, it is impossible to please him. So basically, without now faith, impossible to please, to believe, for it behooves the one drawing near to Theo, or God, that he exists, and to those earnestly seeking him out is what they're saying. Earnestly seeking out him, a rewarder he becomes. That's how it reads in the English version of the Greek. Obviously, it reads, and I'll just show it to you in the Greek real quickly. It reads like this in the Greek. And I'm not going to try to say it. I can't. And it reads like this in the transliterated Greek. But you get the idea. Here is, these one drawing near to God that he exists, to those who are earnestly. So this is the word that they are calling earnestly seeking him out. Let's go see what it says in Strong's related to this particular word, this transliterated Greek here. And the word is exzetio. Am I saying that right? Exzetio. To seek out, to search diligently, to inquire earnestly. So the word is to be translated, and diligently or earnestly would seem to be the correct translation, not just to say seek after, because you need to have an emphasis on it by appearance here. To search out, to investigate, crave, demand, by Hebraism worship. Okay, so we'll quit spending time in here. We get the idea that he's a rewarder. If you believe that he is, and you seek him diligently, earnestly, then he's a rewarder of that seeking. Okay, and before I go to the passage I really want to visit, which is Isaiah 28, chapter 28, verse 9, I'm just going to visit Hebrews 11:6 in the Yah scriptures, which is the scriptures that I tend to try to read because they are a literal translation and they try to insert as much as possible and change as much as possible, but it is apparent that, every once in a while they do. But still, it also introduces the language that I'm going to be using throughout this video. So let me just go ahead and read it in verse 6. But without belief, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to Elohim has to believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who earnestly seek him. So we're introducing Elohim for the word God. They did insert him here, so they must have inserted. I don't think that was in the Greek. So here they didn't italicize, but they did insert a word. But still, we get the idea. If you want him, then you need to earnestly seek him. And if you do that, then he will reward you. Now let's go find this in the old writings because it's found in probably multiple places, but I'm pointing out Isaiah 28, 9, because it's been part of my recent studies. Okay, and so here we are in Isaiah, and the theme that we just saw in Hebrews 11:6 is found here in the prophecy of Isaiah to the people of Israel. And, and if you understand the time, Isaiah, this is, I believe at this point, is the northern kingdom is just getting ready to go into, they're going to be attacked and conquered by Assyria and then taken away, basically dispersed from the land, never to return. We are right in this moment on the cusp of that. And so in the early part of this chapter, they're still describing, the drunkards of Ephraim, which is another word often used for the northern kingdom because Ephraim was the dominant tribe of the northern kingdom, and many of the leaders up there were coming from the tribe of Ephraim. But basically here is, just all of the things related to them where they were once a flower of splendid comeliness, but now they've become overcome with wine and other things. And I'm not going to spend time here, but I'm just telling you that in the, the first 8 verses of this chapter, it's talking about the northern kingdom's failure and what's getting ready to come upon them. Sometimes he's talking about the southern kingdom's failure because while they're not quite as bad as the northern kingdom at this time, they are not good either, and ultimately they also become bad. But here's what we're interested in, verse 9, where I think he changes to really a broad audience, everybody who will listen to him. And here's what he says in verse 9, whom would he teach knowledge? ? And whom would he make to understand the message? ? Those weaned from milk and those taken from breasts. Well, in the Yah translations, they got an exclamation mark here for that. In other translations, it will be a question mark there because in the Hebrew, I don't think they give you any, in the Hebrew, they don't have any punctuation. So we don't really know, but either way it works because if you put an exclamation mark there, it seems to say that the ones that he is teaching knowledge and the ones he's making to understand his message, his knowledge, his message, are those weaned from milk and taken from the breast, those who are no longer babes, or who he's sharing his knowledge and message with. But if you put a question mark there, I guess you could ask it as if it's a question. Those weaned from milk and those taken from babes, as if in that situation, we have this concept of would he really give his knowledge and his message to those who have just been taken from milk and taken from the breast? So they've gone from being babes to small children. And if you put an exclamation mark there, would it, it almost suggests that it wouldn't be to that next age, where you're just off of the milk and the breast. And you have to come into some sort of, the idea behind that, I think, the way I receive it, is that you have to come into some sort of maturity, some sort of time of responsibility where you can begin to understand. But either way, I think the message of this passage is the question. it's the question more so than the immediate response there, because really the question is, whom would he teach knowledge, and whom would he make to understand the message? And that is our objective. The knowledge. We'll get in other passages that my people, they perish for lack of knowledge. What is this knowledge? This is the understanding. This is information about Elohim. If you don't have information about Elohim, why bother saying you believe anything? If you don't have knowledge on what you're trying to believe, why bother? Because you don't truly believe anything, because you don't know anything about it. But if you're seeking his knowledge, if you're seeking knowledge about the creator of this world and about Elohim, then you need knowledge. And then he gives messages. What is the message? If you learn about Elohim, but then he starts giving you commands. He starts giving you guidance. If you are diligently seeking him, he begins to share with you what he's trying to communicate to his people, to his chosen, his elect. So to whom is he making this information of the knowledge and the message available? Well, I think if you value him, if you believe that he is and that you seek him, then you want to say me, like Isaiah did, and like other prophets. Me, here am I, send me, teach me knowledge, teach me the message. I can't speak for everybody, but I know that's my heart's cry. I want it. I'm not sure that what do they say? Be careful what you ask for, because with the more you learn, the more knowledge and sometimes more heartache comes. Because if you read 2nd Esdras, you see the heartache that he was enduring for his people as he became more knowledgeable, as he watched what's happening to his people and to this world. The more you learn, the more you understand, the more you know it's under judgment. It is not coming back. It's not going to, you're not, if you're just in the world and you're not following Yahweh, you're not living the good life. You are living as good as life is going to be for you, but the good life is yet to come. And the good life is reserved to those whom he teaches knowledge and to those whom he makes to understand the message. If you're living here and you don't care and you're not following him, you have the best you're going to have, which is bound in this flesh and tempered with this flesh, which is, it's a sorry place to be. When we get the good life, we will not be bound with this flesh. We are enduring this time. We are enduring this time, making the most of it, trying to be as happy as we can in the midst of it, doing what we can, but we're living for the promise that is yet to come. Okay. So let me get back to Isaiah 28 here and quit with all of that, Let me just say, to whom would he teach knowledge, and to whom would he make to understand the message? For it is command upon command, command upon command, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Well, I think most in Christianity, again, is somewhat familiar with this. They don't necessarily read it in this context, but most understand that if you really want to understand what's going on, if you want to have his knowledge and his message, well, it doesn't come all at once. It's not going to be downloaded into you. You have to study it because it is command upon command. And the church doesn't really understand that to be command. I think they focus on the line upon line and the little upon little, but it is command upon command in the Hebrew. And then he says it twice. It's command upon command. You understand knowledge and the message as you are receiving the command and doing the command. And the little bit, the line upon line, here a little, there a little. The context is that it comes with diligence. It comes with that seeking. It comes with, a little bit here and a little bit there. And when it reads command upon command, I'm confident he's saying that the line upon line and the here a little, there a little needs to be intermixed with obedience to his instruction, to his command. If you're going to seek him, he's going to give you instruction and he's going to give you command. And what you do with that command is, each of them is going to be how he's going to temper your walk with him and how much you love him. What are you really doing when he gives you the command? What do you do with it? And he measures your love for him that way. But let's go to verse 11 now. But before you do, let me just go and visit the Hebrew just very quickly. So here we are quickly in Bible Hub at Isaiah 28:10. And it reads in the English, for precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept. Okay, so what's the word that the English is telling us? Precept, which what would be some form of a law, some form of a requirement. So let's go to the underlying word, which is this tzav, which is given to us as command, precept, order. So it could be, you could read it as command upon command, precept upon precept, or order upon order. Order as in what? An injunction? Okay, I'm not going to spend time there. We get the idea, and I don't want to continue. I'm sorry, I'm doing it again, making the video too long. Sorry. But let's get to verse 11 here, because this takes a couple of reads to kind of hear what he's saying. For he says, with a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue, he speaks to this people. And at first you could say that he's speaking with, so that they could understand, jabbering lips and foreign tongues. But I don't think that's what he's saying at all. I'm saying that to the person that will not hear, to the people that will not hear, he might as well be speaking with a jabbering lip or a foreign tongue, because the audience can't understand, doesn't understand, isn't listening, doesn't understand. It's just jabbering, blah, 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 or a foreign tongue, because they're not listening. So the people that he's saying that, here, let me just read it again. For with a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue, he speaks to this people, meaning that, what he's saying has no value to them, no understanding. And what is the people? It's the people to whom he said, this is rest, give rest to the weary, and this is the refreshing. But they would not hear. So here's what he was saying to them that they thought was jabbering and foreign tongue. This is the rest. Give rest to the weary. And this is the refreshing. Well, what is this is the refreshing? Well, I think you could tie this back. This is the rest. Command upon command, line upon line, here a little, there a little. That is the rest, giving rest to the weary. This is the refreshing. When we get to the new writings and Yahushua has come, the Messiah has come, and he says, basically, I give rest to the weary. Is he referring back to this passage and similar passages like this in Isaiah? Where he's basically saying, if you want rest from the weary, and if you want to understand that following the commands, following Torah is not wearisome, but refreshing. If this is his messaging, which I think it is, when you get in there, it's been a little bit since I studied when he said that, but when you understand that he's calling you unto things, but he's saying, all you who are weary, come to me and receive refreshing. Well, come to him. If it's similar to this, coming to him means come to me and become obedient. Return to the earnest obedience. When you hear the command upon command, be obedient, because therein is the rest. Therein is the rest to the weary, and this is the refreshing to the weary. Whether that refreshing comes in this life or not, because we still don't really know. If he's referring to life in the flesh, because life in the flesh is hard. We really get tired. But if we will follow command upon command and line upon line and, just follow here a little, there a little, it seems like he's taking that and saying, this is the rest, give rest to the weary. This is the refreshing. Could be in this life, and I think it does pertain to this life, but it certainly is if you will receive and be obedient upon the command upon command, line upon line, here a little, there a little. You will be attaining the promises, which is a new body, a new spirit. Well, maybe not a new spirit, but a new body, a new ability. You will be counted amongst the Malachim. Well, actually, wouldn't be an angel, but you would still have a spirit body, and you will no longer need. You will mount up with eagle's wings and no longer become weary. All right, so let's keep going. So basically here in verses 11 and 12, he's basically saying to the people that, that he said, command upon command, line upon line, here a little, there a little, saying this is the rest, give rest to the weary, and this is the refreshing. Well, he might as well have been speaking with a jabbering lip and a foreign tongue to these people, because they would not hear. As I read this passage, that's how I read it. So what's our objective? We need to hear. But the word was to them. So even though they weren't hearing it, still the word of Yahweh. And I want to, in your new writings, in the New Testament, we see the word over and over again. The people of that day, walking in the days of Messiah, in the days of Paul, in the days of the apostles, understood when they said word, they're talking about the word of Yahweh that is found in the scriptures. They are not talking about words that become new and associated with only Messiah's coming. No, when they say the word came and things of that nature, they are talking about the Torah and the commands. When they say the command, they mean the Torah of Yahweh. The church of today, because of time and distance and church doctrines have, they aren't receiving when they see the word in the new writings to mean the Torah, the instructions, these commands upon commands to be the old writings, but that is what it is. I'm not saying every time the word is used in the new writings that it would be referencing this, but most of the times that I've read, it becomes pretty clear that they're referring you back here with this word, with references to the old, the scriptures as the word of Yahweh. Okay. But the word, nevertheless, even though he might have been speaking with a jabbering lip in a foreign tongue, they wouldn't hear. But still, the word of Yahweh was to them command upon command, command upon command, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little, so that they go, because they would not hear. The word to them was to obey. Here's a command, obey it. Here's a command, obey it. Here's some information, learn it. Here's some more information, learn it. Here a little, there a little. But because they would not hear, they go and stumble backward, and they are broken and snared and taken captive. My people perish for lack of knowledge. Therefore, hear the word of Yahweh, you men of scorn, who rule the people who are in Jerusalem. And, this was in that time, he's referencing back to the southern kingdom here, but still, throughout the land, we have Israel, the predominance of Israel, not the remnant of Israel, because the remnant of Israel are hearing. They're doing the command upon command, the command upon command. The remnant of Israel, the true believer, the chosen, the elect. But the larger body of natural Israel that is now dominating national Israel, both the northern kingdom now and the southern kingdom, they are not listening. They are men of scorn, the leaders. Those who are ruling in Jerusalem, but this could be any ruler who is scorning command upon command, line upon line, in my opinion. But here's what's important, because they say, these people who do not know, the leaders of the people, and those who should be shepherding the people and leading them into Torah, into relationship with Father, are instead leading them away from the Father. And what does Isaiah say that these leaders and these people leading them away are doing? They have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with the grave we have effected a vision. Now, I just know I'm not claiming to be perceiving this, or but here's how I've received this, and in the context of the body of work that I've been doing and the studies I've been doing. What is a covenant with death? Basically it's just a covenant is an agreement with death. And so the leaders of Jerusalem, but I'm going to say the leaders of today that are in the church. And hear me, I'm not anti, the pastors, beloved pastors who have heard the messaging and are repeating the message. They've learned the doctrines of church, and that's what they're teaching in church. They're not teaching the doctrines of scriptures. They're not teaching the doctrines that were given to Israel. They are teaching the doctrines that they heard when they came to a saving understanding of the Messiah. The church entered into them. And I get that the church is the one that brought the message, because the church is still delivering the message of Yahushua. But once they bring you into a saving knowledge of the Messiah, then they begin to teach doctrines that do not reflect the correct teachings of Scripture. So the local pastors are doing it innocently because they're just repeating what they have heard. But if you're a local pastor hearing this, I'm saying, ponder this. Whether you end up ultimately agreeing it or not, ponder it. because I'm contending that the doctrines of the church did not come from honest and innocent people. The doctrines of the church have come, it predated the Council of Nicaea, but once Constantine got involved and took over the church and made it a state religion and got involved, well, they just codified and enforced and made it a state fact, where they started taking the things that had already been happening in the centuries prior and codified it, that's how you got your first day, your Sunday idea of Sabbath. You're getting it from Constantine and Council of Nicaea and people groups way back in the 200s, 300s, 400s, when all of this was happening. But it was happening even prior to that. And what did Yahushua forewarn us of? And what did Paul forewarn us of? That many will come into the midst of the assembly, the called out, the church, the ecclesia, the kahal, the called out, assembled people, the chosen, the elect, and the enemy. Wolves will be coming in amongst the sheep and leading everybody astray that can be led astray. And it was going to happen, and it did happen. Not in the future. It happened well in the past, almost 2,000 years ago, into the past. So I'm going to say that the leaders of the church, that now the local leaders and the pastors, and maybe even the national leaders, but those who have been brought up in the church, are now understanding the New Testament and the new writings according to the doctrines of church, and are sharing that and teaching it back. But I would say that much of the doctrines of church is a covenant with death, an agreement with death. These are the leaders in Jerusalem, but it could be the leaders in the church today, because I think they're making a covenant with death. Because when you are not doing, when the church begins to teach against the commands of Yahuwah, I get we will struggle, especially in our world, in our society, to keep all of the commands of Yahuwah. There's no national Israel. There's no way to get to Jerusalem easily, and there's no point in going there because there's no temple and there's no Levitical priesthood operating, to help us do the Moedim. We have problems keeping the Torah. But to teach that we don't need to study and evaluate and keep the Torah that does pertain to us that is going expressly against the commands of Torah, but it's also going expressly against the commands of Yahushua, the Messiah. And I will go so far to say that it's going against the instructions of Paul in his letters and his writings. So it's a covenant with death when you are not operating in life, which is the Torah. And with the grave, we have affected a vision. So when you affect a vision, what is that? That's an imagination. That is a paradigm. That is a doctrine. That is a doctrine. So let me see if I can, hopefully I haven't taken too much time and been too long getting to the point, because the point that I'm saying is that we all need to be careful that, and I would say that just if you're just operating in the doctrines of church, I get there are reasons why you are, that's all you've ever heard. And now your primary doctrines are your primary scriptures, what you call scriptures are the New Testament writings. And that's your primary source of information for developing doctrines. But if you stay there and don't realize that the primary writings are the original scriptures, and that these new writings simply are not they're not changing anything. They are expounding upon the old writings, so nothing's changed. And if the church was teaching correctly, they would be doing as Paul did with Timothy, and pushing and sending you back and their leaders back to the scriptures, the old writings, the Tanakh, the writings of Moshe, the writings of the prophets, the Psalms, and to obtain correct doctrine. That's where they would be pushing you. They wouldn't be pushing you to the letters of Paul. They wouldn't be pushing you to the gospel accounts, even though Yahushua shared many things in the gospel accounts that we need to understand, and they are good commands. That would be, in my opinion, that's the command upon command. That's part of the command upon command. But nobody in writing the gospel accounts said, hey, we're getting ready to hand you some scripture. No, they're just testifying to what they saw and witnessed. Okay, so I'm saying that the leaders have made a covenant with death, and with the grave, Sheol, they've affected a vision, a doctrine, their paradigm. And this is the teaching that the church is giving their followers, because when the overflowing scourge passes through, It does not come to us, for we have made lying our refuge, and under falsehood we have hidden ourselves. So what are some of the teachings of the church? The church will tell you that you are, in a Torahless understanding, you're just fine. All you got to do is really believe and, do good works like missions and feed the hungry and do all these things and be good according to your knowledge. And you can go to what Paul says and some of what Yahushua says, and you can define what is good behavior from what they said, because they're reflecting what is said back here. But if you really want to go to the horse's mouth for what good behavior is, you got to go back to the Torah. But you cannot. The church is leading us. They've got us eating foods that Yahweh said don't. They've got us not serving the Moedim, not even honoring and remembering the Sabbath according to the fourth command. They're leading us. They're not leading us to Torah. Then the commands of Yahweh. They're leading us away to us. But they're saying no problem, because that overflowing scourge. What is the overflowing scourge? You have two of them. You've got the scourge of the Antichrist when he comes on. And in the days of Jerusalem, it would have been the scourge of Assyria. It would have been this, and then later for Jerusalem, it would have been the scourge of Babylon. It would have been the Kittim, the Gentiles, in the hand of Elohim, meting out judgment upon the people. And many of those people who were not being obedient, were not following Torah, it's not going to happen to us. But it did happen to them. Today's church says, I don't care. They get bravado. I'm serious about my Elohim, and I don't really care what you say about the Torah. What are you saying to me? If I don't follow Torah, am I going to hell? None of that. I'm not trying to say, it's not up to me. I don't have any, but what I am saying to you is scriptures teach you that you should be keeping Torah. So when we're hearing from the church and embracing from the church that we don't need to keep Torah, command upon command, the church is telling them it does not come upon us, for we have made, now Isaiah says that we've made lying our refuge. It's somebody came to us and gave us false doctrines, and they've lied. And now we in the church, if you are staying in church doctrine, you are making that lying your refuge. And under that falsehood, you're hiding yourselves and hoping yourselves. And hoping for yourselves. Same thing with the pre-trib rapture picture. If you really study it, I know that if you're in the Assemblies of God, they're teaching you that pre-trib rapture picture, and if you're going to be a pastor in their assemblies, you've got to share that. I think if you step out of that, you're going to have problems in that what do you call it? A denomination. You're not probably going to be able to stay there. You're going to be in trouble, etc. But the pre-trib rapture idea says, hey man, this scourge, which is also, I didn't finish my other thought. We have the scourge of the Kittim that comes through and metes out judgment upon unbelieving people. But we also have the scourge of Yahweh coming. That is the day of Yahweh. That is the wrath of Elohim poured out. So we have two scourges, the scourge of of Satan, the scourge of the Gentiles, and then we have the scourge of Elohim when he metes out his punishment at the end of the day. And the church is thinking they're going to be raptured out before that happens. Well, I think that the true believer is going to be as well. But if you are going too far in disobedience, you're not even going to be raptured out before the scourge. In my way of thinking, you're not going to be raptured out before the scourge of the Antichrist passes through. You're going to be living on the world, in the world, during the days of the Antichrist. Preferably, you're going to be living as the Church of Philadelphia, who will be kept within the time of trial. Kept. When food shortages come through, maybe he's going to send the ravens, maybe he's going to send manna, but he's going to keep the certain group of people who are enduring in Torah. To the rest of the churches, they're not promised that. They are probably going to go through the scourging of the Antichrist. But none of the church who will really truly be counted amongst the elect, even though they might fail to be so solid that they avoid the scourge of the Antichrist, I don't think they're going to be here when the scourge of Elohim comes, when the day of Yahweh comes. But there are many, and probably most amongst the church who are so cavalier in their faith that they're the ones that are going to show up, like according to Matthew 7, and say, hey, here we are, and show up and say, hey, didn't we do good works? And basically Yahushua is going to say, away from me, I never knew you, you lawless one, you Torahless one, you who would not follow the commands. and follow my instructions. There are going to be many, many who are also going to endure the scourge of Yahweh that didn't expect to. But I would say also they're not going to be taking part in that resurrection, that first resurrection. So maybe they're not, when they go to Sheol, they're going to the sinners' places of Sheol. Another day topic, but you get the idea. But what does Yahweh, the Adon, the Master, Yahweh say? Therefore, thus said the Adon, Yahweh, see, I am laying in Zion a stone for a foundation, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a settled foundation. He who trusts shall not hasten away. Well, we all recognize this is a messianic promise. That he's that stone he's laying in Zion, at least according to the way it's well, no, we recognize it as a messianic promise that stone that's being laid in Zion, Mount Zion, and I'm going to say it's the mountain of Zion, the stone, the foundation, the tried stone, precious, is Yahushua. And he goes on to say in verse 17, I shall make right ruling, which is right judgments, good judgments, truth, the measuring line. So, and this takes place when Messiah brings that message. And when he brings that message, right ruling is the way of the reign of the Shemayim. But the reign of the Shemayim continues to be, when he left here, he went back up into the heavens, the Shemayim, where he is reigning as sovereign king of the reign of the kingdom of heaven. And up there, right ruling is the measuring line. But down here, that has not come down yet. It's coming down at the day of Yahweh, at his second coming. It is coming down, in which case that right ruling that's up there will come down. But in the meantime, we still live in Satan's world, where Satan is still garnishing, and we don't see right ruling. Not even in the church do we see right ruling being the right judgment, right understanding being the measuring line. And righteousness, not just, I know the church would, I think they gloss the word righteousness, but righteousness is another way of saying rightness. Well, how are you going to be right? What is rightness? Well, who defines what is right? Yahweh does. And he gives it to us in the old writings. We get the Torah, we get the judgments, which is the right rulings, and we get the witnesses and the testimonies. This is how he reveals to us what is rightness. And his definition of rightness is the one that's going to be brought down. It's going to be the measuring line. It's going to be the plummet, which is going to be the solid, the very thing upon which everything is good, the standard, the very thing upon which everything is going to be measured. And church, you're being taught and led by the larger body of the leadership of the church, going all the way back to the early centuries. You're being taught to walk not in rightness, but in wrongness. If you are eating the things, and these are just some of the measuring things that we're talking about. If you are eating pork, which is now part of the Easter day, so they're leading you into eating pork when the command is don't eat a pig, don't eat crawfish, don't eat crust. There are lots of things that today we're just eating because we think that, according to the doctrines of church, that they think come from Paul and even Yahushua, not even realizing that the doctrines of the church are making their way into the translations. If you're reading the NIV goes so far as to say that Yahushua said that, and he didn't say that. Those are added words. You don't really get a command anywhere in these new writings where they are undermining the commands given to Israel in the old writings. But the church will teach you that, and you'll hang on to it, because if the harder you're trying to hang on to the teachings of church, the more you're going to stay in wrongness and not rightness. If you continue to not rest on the Sabbath, Saturday, the seventh, I don't like to say Saturday, but it's the seventh day. If you're not going to continue to rest, and you're going to continue to accept the church's leading that the day of rest is now Sunday, the first day, for their reasons that they don't get from Yahweh, they get it from their own people. You might as well call them, what were the Pharisees saying? The oral traditions of the church now, teaching you, and you're leading and you're following it, not into righteousness, but into wrongness. Not rightness, but wrongness. And the hail, let's go back to verse 17. And the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lying, and the waters overflow the hiding place. So everybody who thinks that they are safe in church doctrine, up here, everybody who thinks that they are safe, saying that the scourge will not come upon us, and have made lying, false doctrines, and falsehood their refuge, and think they're hidden. No, Yahweh says that's not what's going to happen. You need to be listening to Yahweh, who pushes you back to and points you back to the Torah, the commands. He who loves me will do the will and the commands of my Father. And my commands, because, he was part of this whole bringing of the Torah. He was part of the Elohim in those days. That's why he is I am. All right. But basically then Yahweh says that the hail shall sweep away that refuge of lying. If that's your hope, the doctrines of church, and the doctrines of church are your hiding place, well, the hail shall sweep that away, and the waters overflow it, and you will undergo the scourge. Only those who are following the commands, and as command upon command, your obedience is going to be tested. Every time you receive a command, it's your job to recognize when it's a command of Yahweh, when it pertains to you. And then it's your job to do it, because that's going to become your why in the road. If you do it, great. That's what you're expected to do. If you don't, you're going to fall into the realm of those who are just simply failing to follow his instruction. And that is not, I don't care how earnestly you think you believe Yahushua, because if you believe Yahushua like you're supposed to, which means you believe what he says, you believe who he is, Messiah to Israel, then you understand and you believe him when he says you are to do the commands. If you love me, you will do the commands, which is, I know the church has prepared their followers to say, what are you sending me back to? The things that destroyed Israel? No, we're just sending you back to being mindful of the commands your Elohim makes to you, and find out what you need to be doing to serve him the way he has identified that he wants to be served, which I assure you is not the way the church is worshiping and serving him now. Let me just finish this up. And your covenant with death shall be annulled, and your vision with the grave shall not stand. Your doctrines will not stand. Your promises, the things, the agreements you make with wrong understanding shall be annulled. They will come to nothing. Your vision with the grave will not stand. When an overflowing scourge passes through, then you shall be trampled down by it. As often as it passes through, it shall take you. For it shall pass through every morning and by day and by night, and it shall be only trembling to understand the message. For the bed shall be too short for a man to stretch out on, and the covering shall be too narrow to wrap himself in. For Yahweh rises up as he did at Mount Perazim, and he is wroth as at the valley of Gibeon, to do his work, his strange work, which is his uncommon work, his deed. This is the coming of Yahweh. He rises. This is the day of Yahweh, and he's going to rise up, and he's going to do his tremendous and unrecognizable. People are not expecting what he's going to be doing, but when he does and comes with his day of wrath, it's going to be strange to everybody, but he is rising up to do that. And all those doctrines are going to be, you're going to be laying on the doctrines of the church as they've presented it today, and you're going to find that the bed that you're resting in is too short. It doesn't fit. It's not enough for you to sleep in. The covering with which you cover yourself is not enough. It will not cover you. And now do not be scoffers, lest your bonds be made strong. For I have heard from the Adon Yahweh of hosts a destruction decreed upon all earth. This is the strange deed. This is the day of Yahweh. Give ear and hear my voice. Listen and hear my word. All right, here's where I'm going to end it, because you get the idea. People, you're being called back. I will say, and you can receive it as you will, but if you are, the doctrines of the church are demonstrably wrong, the primary doctrines of the church. And I go, throughout my channel, I'm identifying those that are wrong, that you can identify in the scriptures, in the old writings. And if you're going to continue to hang on to the teachings of the church, the doctrines of the church, tested only against the new writings, which is how they created those doctrines. They took new writings, the writings of Paul, some of the gospel accounts, and they have, from those writings, twisted those words to come up with a paradigm and a doctrine. and are giving you a false doctrine that will turn out to be a problem for you, because it will be annulled. Those doctrines will be annulled. They will not stand. They will not save you from the overflowing scourge that passes through, and you will be trampled down by it. So I'm just going to repeat as I close this out. Do not be scoffers, lest your bonds be made strong, your bondages. The longer you stay and refuse to head into the right direction, the harder it will be for you to ever get to the right direction. And give ear, and here is the final word. Give ear and hear my voice. Listen and hear my word. Not me. This is Isaiah speaking. This is Yahweh saying this through Isaiah. Give ear and hear my voice. Listen and hear my word. Command upon command, command upon command. Line upon line, line upon line. Here a little, there a little. Well, all right. If you think what I'm sharing has validity, some merit, a reason to be heard, then I invite you and ask you to like, share, subscribe, so that the messaging can get out. If you think it's wrong, if you are a studied person, I don't really want to hear from just anybody who wants to pipe up when they don't really know what they're talking about. But if you are a serious student of Scripture and you think what I'm sharing is just wrong representation of the words of Isaiah, I'm glad to hear. I do want to hear. But I will be looking for answers to what he would be saying here. What do you think he's communicating in this message? So I would invite you to give comment, and I'll be looking for people who are serious about things like this. Well, thank you, and may you be Baruch.